What began as a routine scuffle inside a jailhouse has spiraled into a story so shocking, so layered, and so tragic that it feels ripped straight out of a Netflix crime thriller. At the center of the storm is King Harris, the son of rap legends T.I. and Tiny, who is now clinging to life in the intensive care unit. As of this moment, King's condition remains critical, his survival uncertain, and the question tearing through the internet is as haunting as it is sinister. Was this just an unfortunate accident? The kind of violence that can erupt inside correctional facilities at any moment? Or was it something much more calculated? A carefully orchestrated takedown meant to send a message. The details emerging from behind hospital doors are chilling. Doctors have reportedly whispered about organ failure, a sign that King's injuries run far deeper than anyone originally assumed. Nurses are said to be refusing to leave his side, watching over him around the clock as machines hum and beep, keeping him alive. Fans across the globe are pouring their hearts out on social media, flooding timelines with hashtags like "Pray for King" and "Justice for Harris," desperate for news, desperate for hope. But beneath that wave of support lurks something darker. Leaked reports have suggested that King's injuries do not line up with the profile of a typical fight. These weren't the marks of an impulsive clash between young men whose tempers boiled over. No, these were deliberate injuries, wounds that doctors described as systematic and calculated. The kind of wounds that are designed not only to hurt, but to humiliate, to cripple, and to terrify. The kind of wounds that are inflicted when someone wants to make a statement. And just when observers thought the story could not descend any deeper into mystery, new rumors began circulating, setting social media ablaze. Anonymous sources began to claim that masked figures were spotted entering King's hospital room under suspicious circumstances. The whispers allege that machines keeping him alive were tampered with, that hospital security cameras cut out at precisely the wrong moments, and that audio leaks surfaced online, all suggesting that what happened to King inside jail may not have ended there. The chilling words, repeated in hushed tones, "The order came from above," paint a picture that is as terrifying as it is hard to confirm. If these allegations are true, then this is no longer just the story of a fight gone wrong. This is the story of a young man trapped in something much bigger, something far more sinister than a brawl. It raises the question, is King Harris fighting for his life against injuries, or is he battling against forces determined to silence him forever? For the children of celebrities, life under the spotlight is often painted as glamorous. To the outside world, it looks like wealth, privilege, designer clothes, and endless opportunities. But the reality is far harsher. Every mistake is magnified, every rumor is amplified, and every personal battle is transformed into public entertainment. Growing up famous can feel like growing up in a glass cage. Everyone can see you, but no one truly knows you. For King Harris, that cage has felt more like a magnifying glass. Instead of shining light on his accomplishments, it has burned into his flaws. His every misstep has been dissected, judged, and ridiculed, leaving him with little room to simply be young, to make mistakes privately, or to learn away from the eyes of millions. And now, with the shocking revelation that King's condition has worsened in the ICU, the very people who once mocked him are holding their breath, waiting for the next update, aware that this story could change everything. What was supposed to be just another night of drama spiraling out of control has now escalated into the darkest chapter of the Harris family. For T.I. and Tiny, parents who have built careers and legacies through resilience and artistry, the unthinkable is happening. Their son, their child, is fighting for his life, and all they can do is wait. The question that continues to echo across media outlets and living rooms is this: how did we get here? How did a young man, born into fame and wealth, end up trapped in a nightmare so grim that doctors are preparing his family for the worst? To answer that question, we must rewind to the series of events that led King into the eye of this storm. It all began in a jailhouse incident that was never supposed to become public knowledge. King Harris, already a magnet for criticism and controversy, was involved in what was initially described as a fight behind bars. At first, the internet barely blinked. King had long been accused of chasing chaos, and news of him getting into trouble felt almost predictable to many. Critics rolled their eyes, trolls flooded Twitter, and gossip blogs churned out mocking headlines. But then the truth started to leak, and it became clear this was no ordinary altercation. According to witnesses and insiders, King was not a willing participant in a spontaneous fight. He was ambushed. Multiple individuals reportedly cornered him, leaving him no chance to defend himself. The attack was sudden, brutal, and overwhelming. By the time guards intervened, the damage had already been done. And unlike other fights inside correctional walls, this one left wounds so severe that King was immediately marked as high risk. The aftermath was ugly. Instead of rallying around him, much of the internet turned his suffering into entertainment. Memes mocking his situation went viral within hours. Comment sections filled with cruel jokes. Even some of the people who once called themselves friends took the opportunity to use the incident as ammunition against him. For a young man already drowning in scrutiny, the humiliation was crushing. But behind the memes and rumors, the truth was far more serious than anyone on the outside understood. Doctors who examined King quickly realized the situation was dire. This wasn't about black eyes or busted lips. His body had sustained internal injuries, damage that put his very survival at risk. Within hours, he was transferred from the jailhouse to a hospital where he was admitted straight into the intensive care unit. That was the moment reality hit the Harris family like a sledgehammer. For T.I., a man who has built his career on toughness, fearlessness, and resilience, this was the breaking point. Witnesses say the rapper, who has always projected an image of strength, broke down in private when faced with the sight of his son lying unconscious, hooked up to machines. For Tiny, King's mother, the pain has been equally unbearable. Reports suggest she has barely left the hospital since her son was admitted, standing vigil at his side through every test, every procedure, and every agonizing update. Her presence has been constant, her determination unwavering. As the Harris family fights their private battle inside those hospital walls, the public has turned the incident into a spectacle. Theories flood social media feeds by the second. Some insist this is nothing more than the tragic consequence of King's reckless lifestyle, claiming his years of chasing attention and pushing boundaries finally caught up to him. Others, however, are convinced something more sinister is at play. They point to King's family connections, his outspoken nature, and his past controversies as potential reasons why someone might want to target him. Gang-related motives are whispered about in corners of the internet. Conspiracies about enemies within the industry are dissected in comment sections. And yet, through all the noise, one fact remains constant. King Harris is fighting for his life, and the truth of what really happened remains unclear. Inside the hospital, grief collided with panic. Sources close to the Harris family revealed that doctors had told them the next 24 hours would be the most critical. In that narrow window of time, the future of King's life would either be secured or lost forever. The weight of that news was unbearable. Tiny, a mother who had nurtured her son through the chaotic storms of fame and adolescence, crumpled in the hospital corridor, screaming so loudly that her cries echoed through the sterile hallways. A bystander caught the heartbreaking scene on video, and within minutes, it was posted online. What should have been a private moment of anguish spread like wildfire across the internet, viewed by millions within hours. Hashtags like #PrayForKing and #JusticeForHarris dominated Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Suddenly, King's fight for his life was no longer a private tragedy. It was a global spectacle. As the video continued to circulate, a darker piece of information began to leak. A confidential medical report passed it insiders and quickly shared with media outlets painted a grim picture that went far beyond the expected results of a jailhouse brawl. The report described injuries that were not consistent with a typical fight. Instead of random bruises and lacerations, King's body bore patterned marks, cuts, and wounds that doctors described as deliberate and repeated. Medical insiders used words like calculated and systematic, comparing the injuries more to torture than to a spontaneous altercation. The revelation sent shockwaves across social media and raised unsettling questions. Who would want to punish King Harrison this way? Was this about a personal grudge, a gang-related conflict, or something much larger, an orchestrated effort to send a chilling message? Then came an even haunting twist. A grainy audio recording surfaced online, allegedly featuring the voice of a prison guard. In the clip, the guard was heard whispering that the attack on King had been ordered from above. Those two words, from above, were enough to ignite a frenzy of speculation. Who exactly was above? Was this a reference to prison authorities, industry figures, or was it something even more sinister? The implication that King's attack might not have been random at all, but instead orchestrated by people with power and influence, changed the narrative instantly. This was no longer just a story of a reckless young man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. This was starting to look like a carefully constructed takedown. As if the situation weren't already spiraling into nightmare territory, new reports emerged from inside the hospital itself. According to anonymous sources, leaked surveillance footage from the ICU appeared to show masked figures entering King's hospital room late at night. The grainy clip allegedly captured them approaching his bed and tampering with the very machines keeping him alive. If the footage was real, it suggested that King wasn't even safe after being removed from custody and placed under medical care. The possibility that his attackers could reach him inside one of the most secure areas of a major hospital horrified the public. The internet exploded with theories, each more alarming than the last, about who had the power to orchestrate something so brazen and why they would want King silenced permanently. While speculation raged online, the Harris family was living through their worst nightmare. Outside the ICU, T.I. himself broke down in ways the public had rarely seen. Known throughout his career as a man who projected strength, authority, and resilience, the rapper appeared shattered. Witnesses described him standing in the hallway, his hands trembling, his face streaked with tears, as he begged officials not to let his son die. One piece of footage, showing him with his voice breaking and eyes swollen, spread instantly online and became another viral moment in a story already filled with shocking visuals. Yet, while many fans responded with compassion, others were far more critical. A harsher course emerged, dredging up T.I.'s past controversies and suggesting this was the price of fame, a grim reminder that celebrity privilege could not shield anyone from tragedy. Meanwhile, inside the hospital ward, the tension reached a breaking point. Nurses reportedly refused to leave King's bedside, staying in shifts to make sure he was never alone. Yet whispers began to circulate about missing security footage, unexplained machine failures, and suspicious interruptions in care. One confidential hospital note, leaked to the press, mentioned traces of an unidentified substance in King's bloodstream. Analysts quickly noted that the substance did not correspond to any injuries from a physical assault. That single revelation fueled explosive new theories. Had King been poisoned after he arrived at the hospital? And if so, how had it happened? Could someone inside the medical staff have been compromised? The thought that a hospital, supposed to be a place of healing, could instead be a stage for sabotage terrified the public and left the family on edge. The Harris family was soon pulled into meetings with doctors, where they were asked to sign paperwork typically reserved for end-of-life cases. Those documents made it clear how precarious King's condition truly was. When presented with the forms, Tiny collapsed once again, this time so violently that she required medical attention herself. Witnesses described her cries echoing through the ICU, begging not to have her baby taken from her. Another staff member secretly recorded the scene, and like every other leak in this case, it too went viral. The footage shattered millions who watched a mother in her rawest moment of despair, helpless as her child hovered between life and death. Outside the hospital, the crisis had already spilled into the streets. Fans, protesters, and onlookers began to gather at the hospital doors. Some held candles, others carried signs demanding justice, and many simply came to pray. But as the crowd grew, tensions escalated. Some demonstrators attempted to force their way inside the hospital, driven by fear and anger. convinced that King was being targeted even as he lay in intensive care. Law enforcement quickly responded, bolstering security and turning the hospital into something resembling a fortress. What should have been a sanctuary of healing became a city under siege. At the same time, the music industry was reacting in real time. Celebrities posted emotional tributes, prayers, and videos urging strength for the Harris family. Some stars even accused the industry itself of corruption and complicity, hinting that King's situation was a symptom of darker forces at work in entertainment. Others dismissed the entire tragedy as karma, arguing that King's reckless lifestyle and public behavior had finally caught up with him. The internet conversation splintered into a toxic divide, with empathy and vitriol battling for dominance. For the Harris family, however, none of that mattered. The only thing that mattered was whether their son would live. Inside the ward, the updates grew more terrifying. Doctors warned that King was slipping into multi-organ failure. The phrase itself sent shockwaves through his supporters, a stark reminder of how fragile the situation was. Then, unverified claims began to circulate that King had been declared clinically dead for nearly 2 minutes before doctors were able to resuscitate him. Whether true or not, the rumor spread instantly and added yet another layer of anguish to an already unbearable story. In the middle of this chaos, T.I. reportedly confronted hospital staff directly. According to witnesses, he accused them of covering up the truth and demanded answers about why cameras had gone dark and why safeguards had failed. Clips of the confrontation leaked almost immediately, fueling further outrage and speculation online. Anonymous whistleblowers continued to step forward, releasing fragments of records, surveillance logs, and whispered accounts. Each new leak added fuel to the growing belief that this was not a tragic accident, but a deliberate, coordinated effort to silence King Harris. However, sources inside the hospital describe a scene that no parent should ever have to endure. King Harris was rushed from prison to the emergency ward, barely breathing, covered in bruises, his body mangled from the attack. Machines are now the only reason his chest rises and falls. Tubes run across his frail frame, pumping air into lungs that can't function on their own. Bandages cover wounds that doctors describe not as random injuries from a fight, but as the signs of deliberate torture. This is no longer just a story about violence inside a prison. It's about betrayal, conspiracy, and the terrifying reality that someone, somewhere, wanted King Harris silenced. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, thousands of fans have gathered. They stand shoulder to shoulder, holding candles, chanting King's name, and raising posters that read, "Pray for King." The air is filled with sorrow and fear. On social media, the hashtag #PrayForKing has become a global trend, with millions of people across the world pouring out messages of love, concern, and disbelief. But among the prayers and sympathy is an undercurrent of anger. Anger at a system that failed to protect a young man, anger at the silence from officials, and anger at the realization that this was no accident. And then there's the raw pain of a father. T.I., the man who has built an empire in hip-hop, a man who has always carried himself with toughness, resilience, and authority, has been stripped down to nothing more than a broken parent. Cameras captured him outside the ICU, tears streaming down his face, his voice trembling as he begged the universe not for justice, not for retribution, but for something so much simpler and so much more heartbreaking. With his voice cracking under the weight of grief, he said, "I don't care about justice. All I want is for my son to live. God, please don't take him away from me." For a man who has stood at the top of the rap game for decades, who has fought battles in music and in life, this was the one fight he could not control. The sight of T.I. reduced to desperate prayers has struck a chord with fans worldwide, making this tragedy feel deeply personal. But the story grows darker with each passing hour. Leaked audio from inside the hospital has spread like wildfire. In it, a nurse's voice trembles as she whispers, "This wasn't a random occurrence. It was a setup. Someone wanted him gone." Those words hit like a thunderbolt. Suddenly, this is no longer just a violent altercation,
but an attempted assassination. And now, the question consuming the internet is as chilling as it is simple. Who wanted King Harris silenced, and why?
Inside the ICU, the atmosphere is suffocating. Doctors rush in and out, nurses check machines that beep rhythmically, each sound reminding the family that King's survival is hanging by a thread. His face is pale, almost lifeless. His body so fragile that even moving him risks further damage. A single sheet covers him, and every few minutes, alarms go off, bringing staff sprinting back into the room. For T.I. and Tiny, watching through the glass, the helplessness is unbearable. Tiny reportedly collapsed when doctors first told her that King might not survive the night, screaming, "Why my baby? Why him?" Her anguish, caught on video by bystanders, has gone viral, bringing the raw, unfiltered pain of a mother to millions of timelines. As the family prays, the internet speculates. Theories pour in from every corner of social media. Some believe King stumbled onto something inside prison: corruption, contraband, maybe even illegal ties between inmates and guards. Others insist that this was revenge, a message aimed not at King himself, but at his father, T.I. After all, T.I. has been a powerful figure in hip-hop for decades, building alliances but also making enemies. Could it be that someone from his past has chosen to strike at him in the cruelest way possible by targeting his son? And then, there are those who whisper about something even darker, a personal hit ordered from the outside, designed not just to punish King, but to erase him entirely. What adds fuel to the fire are the mysterious gaps in evidence. Normally, prison cameras capture everything, documenting every second of inmate activity. Yet somehow, in the minutes leading up to King's attack, the cameras mysteriously shut off. Officials claim it was a technical glitch, but anonymous insiders insist the cameras were deliberately disabled. If that is true, then the implications are staggering. It would mean this wasn't just negligence, it was orchestration. The very people tasked with ensuring safety may have looked the other way or actively participated in setting King up for destruction. For the Harris family, this nightmare is unbearable. T.I., who has spent his career projecting strength, has been shattered. He's calling lawyers, confronting officials, and demanding answers. But in his private moments, those close to him say he is breaking down in ways he never has before. Tiny, meanwhile, refuses to leave the hospital, sitting at King's bedside every chance she gets, clutching his hand and whispering prayers into his ear. The rest of the Harris family has rallied together, but the weight of uncertainty is crushing them. Every hour feels like a lifetime. Every doctor's update feels like a verdict. And while the family suffers, the public continues to debate. Some critics argue that King's reckless lifestyle put him on this path, claiming this was the inevitable result of years of bad decisions. Others fiercely reject that idea, insisting that no one deserves this level of brutality, no matter their mistakes. On gossip blogs, memes are being made, mocking his situation, while at the same time, countless fans are flooding the internet with prayers and heartfelt messages. It's a stark reminder of how unforgiving the spotlight can be, how the children of celebrities are not only watched, but scrutinized, and in King's case, mocked even in his darkest hour. But for now, none of the speculation matters. What matters are the next 24 hours. Doctors have warned that this is the critical window. If King's body can withstand the internal damage, if his organs can hold on, there is hope for recovery. But if not, the consequences will be irreversible. Every beep from the ICU monitors feels like a countdown, each one a reminder that time is slipping away. For T.I. and Tiny, those beeps are the soundtrack of their nightmare, each one either a fragile lifeline or a potential farewell. And yet, even in this darkness, the world has united in prayer. From Atlanta to Los Angeles, from New York to London, candlelight vigils are being held. Fans chant King's name, pastors lead prayers, and hip-hop artists post messages of support. Even those who once mocked King have gone silent, recognizing that this moment is bigger than gossip, bigger than clout. This is life and death, and no one can deny the gravity of what is unfolding. Inside the ICU, doctors have been frank with the family. The next 24 hours, they warned, would be critical.
If King's body could fight back against the internal damage, recovery was possible, though long and grueling. If not, the outcome would be devastating. Those words hang heavy in the air as the Harris family clings to faith, praying for a miracle while bracing themselves for the unthinkable. But the mystery of what happened doesn't stop at the hospital doors. Allegations of suspicious activity, tampered machines, missing footage, and masked intruders have only fueled speculation that this was more than just a fight. If true, it suggests that King Harris isn't merely battling his injuries. He is battling against forces determined to keep him from ever recovering, forces that may have had him marked long before the jailhouse ambush took place. And so, the world waits. Fans, critics, and casual observers all find themselves united in anticipation, holding their breath for news that could change everything. For some, King's battle is a sobering reminder of the price of fame and the cruelty of growing up under the spotlight. For others, it is proof of darker conspiracies hiding in plain sight. But for T.I., Tiny, and the Harris family, this is not about theories or headlines. This is about their son, their flesh and blood, and whether he will live to see another day. The story of King Harris is far from over. Whether this ends in triumph or tragedy, one thing is certain: the truth, when it finally comes out, will shake not only Atlanta, but the entire world of hip-hop, celebrity culture, and beyond. For now, all we can do is wait, watch, and pray.